Voice of Yoga.
Welcome to the Institute for Personal Development, Kriya Yoga Ashram, where total consciousness is the new frontier.
Kriya Yoga is union of the individual with the divine. Join us as we explore the practices to initiate this process.
Good morning. Welcome to the Voice of Yoga. Let's talk consciousness. I am your hostess, Lisa Winton, and with me is Kenny Toy, also known as Swami Jayananda, founder of the Institute for Personal Development, located here in Hampton, New Hampshire. Good morning, Swami. Thank you for being here today. How are you?
Good morning. I'm doing pretty good today. How about you?
Well, I'm doing great today, too. Thanks for asking. And we'd like to thank you all for tuning in. Today on the Voice of Yoga, we will talk about the truth that resides beyond things and thoughts, the divine creation right where mortal appearances seem to be. Listen as we discuss why Jesus said, "The kingdom of heaven is at hand." In this episode, we will explore the methodology required to develop the faculty capable of perceiving the invisible, intangible, omnipresent spirit. Welcome to the Voice of Yoga. We are talking consciousness. Join the Kriya Yoga Spiritual Advance to get the light in your soul and be a servant of the Most High. Swami, the title of today's podcast is Secret of the Healing Ministry. What can you tell us about this title? What's your inspiration?
Well, we got this title from the reading you have been doing in Beyond Words and Thoughts by Joel Goldsmith. And I thought maybe we would start with reading what it was you found so interesting.
I'll read it. The world believes that it knows what error is. To the world, it is a terrible and great power. It has the world in its grip, producing juvenile delinquency, gambling, drug addiction, rape, arson, murder, and wars. Everybody knows what evil is. If only someone could get God to do something about it. But in this message, it is clearly revealed that you do not have to get God to do anything at all about it, because the nature of evil is the arm of flesh, or nothingness. Resist not evil is the Master's teaching, and that is the mystery of the healing ministry. When in your healing work, you can sit down with the mind at rest and not battle the appearance, not fight it, not try to remove germs from somebody's body, not try to dissolve lumps and reduce fevers, not try to heal insanity, but rest in that inner peace and quiet and assurance that there is only one law, spiritual law, and that all else is an image in the mind. The experience of God can take over, and then the healing takes place. Has there ever been any more potent material law than that sitting in a draft or getting wet feet would give a person a cold? End of the passage from that work. Swami, there's a lot going on here. What are your insights?
Yeah, as I advance in my understanding of divine law and how we call it into expression, you start to see we're approaching our lives in exactly the opposite way it is designed to be used. We respond to the testimony of our corporeal senses, rather than putting our efforts in knowing beyond the mental material concept is the kingdom of heaven on earth. What we've been focusing more and more on is the idea of developing the faculty that enables us to perceive the divine creation. One of the pitfalls of organized Orthodox religion is this idea of belief. We believe in God. We believe in sickness. We believe in the devil. We have to get beyond the level of belief. Belief in the divine principle graduates to faith. Faith is where your belief is now starting to demonstrate. You're starting to see my conscious awareness of this divine creation has an effect on what is appearing in my corporeal senses. And then eventually your faith will graduate to understanding, where you are now demonstrating divine law with scientific certainty. But it's a process. It's not an event. It's something we become aware of. We can start with a belief in the divine creation. But if you want to go beyond just believing in this good and evil world of energy, and you want to call into expression the invisible, intangible perfection of being, then what we focus on is the methodology, the how-to.
And I like what Joel Goldsmith was saying too. Like he tells us he has a how-to as well. Understanding the nature of evil is a pretty good indication of what error is as well. Do you think those two are synonymous?
Oh, absolutely. It's what they call in the Bible sin. It's missing the mark. I like the way Joel Goldsmith lays it out. You must know the nature of God, the nature of error, and the nature of prayer. Mary Baker Eddy does it in a similar way. She says you need the principle and the rule. We must understand the divine principle. Know the nature of God is absolute goodness. All in all, it's the only reality in this universe. Spirit is the only self-existent power, and it's everywhere always. Mental material energy is just an appearance. It's a concept or a thought about what's really here. So the nature of error is the nothingness of it. It doesn't have any power. The only power evil seems to have is the power we give it because we believe in it. This mental material world of energy, this good and evil world, runs on the belief in two powers. Spiritual law, by opposition, runs on the power of one. But it is belief that gives our thoughts this appearance of power. Once we no longer believe in the testimony of our corporeal senses, provided we develop the faculty that enables us to know the truth, the divine creation, we're starting to understand the secret of the healing ministry. We don't make anything better. We come out of the belief something could be imperfect.
I really liked when he said, if only someone could get God to do something about it. And he's talking about all the evil things that he had listed earlier. And I think that's important for us to understand because that's the starting point of nature of prayer. Would you agree?
This idea of trying to get God to do something for us, first of all, it's not possible. God cannot give us anything, primarily because God isn't withholding anything. God is running a perfect universe. It's our responsibility to know this truth. And the nature of prayer is in asking. The Bible says, ask in my name. My name means my likeness. The nature of prayer and the nature of the divine principle is spirit. It's oneness. And so to call this divine principle into expression, we must know ourselves in the way that we're known, which is spirit. That's oneness. And when you know yourself spiritually, there's nothing you would be asking for because spirit is whole, it's complete, it's fulfilled. It's mental material where gain and loss appears to be. If you are wanting for anything, you can't know the truth. You can't know yourself in the way that you are known by the Creator, which is perfect, whole. It's very different from the way Orthodox religion goes about this, where we are asking God to do favors for us. And we think there's nothing wrong with that. Intrinsically, there is nothing evil about it, but it doesn't work that way. The origins of the word to heal means to be whole. It's not about fixing problems in the mental material world of appearance. It's really about revealing the truth, the divine creation. which is held, controlled, and governed by this divine law of absolute goodness.
Yeah, what you just described, I think, really helps us understand what Joel Goldsmith was saying when he says, in the healing work, you sit down with your mind at rest and don't battle the appearance. Don't fight it. Don't try to remove anything. I think that's important for us to understand. And then, as what you were saying, rest in the inner peace and quiet with the assurance that there's only one law, spiritual law, and that all else is an image in the mind. And then the experience of God can take over, and that's the true healing. So, Swami, what does that look like when we're doing it?
Yeah, first of all, go back to the difference between thinking, thought, which is duality, and knowing, which is the divine idea. The Word of God, which is pouring out continuously. One is in half, and the other one is whole and complete. The minute we start thinking, we're working with a mind that can't bring forth this divine image. In fact, it creates the interference pattern. It creates the veil. The mind can't free itself from its own creation. This world is a mental image driven by the belief in two powers. As Mrs. Eddy told us, mortal mind is belief and divine mind is understanding. Mortal mind thinks and divine mind knows. We think with 5 corporeal senses and know with 7 spiritual senses. The secret is found in the difference between thinking and knowing. What we don't understand is when we are thinking, we are short-circuiting the divine idea, which is functioning everywhere always. Once we stop thinking, forming thoughts and opinions based on information coming through our corporeal senses, and we become conscious of this divine law, then, like Joel Goldsmith said, the experience of God can take over. And God doesn't think in terms of the rational, think in duality. God thinks in terms of the absolute. The divine idea is pure, unadulterated, absolute goodness without opposite. This brings what we think is a healing, but it's a revealing of what always is. Spirit is the only reality. We're just not conscious of it.
Yeah, I like what you said when the secret is found in the difference between thinking and knowing. So, Swami, what would be some of the steps to get to that point?
Well, for me, you want to build this mental landscape that will support the divine idea. You have to create a value system, understanding how creation is taking place in accordance with this law of absolute goodness and then this appearance. The Bible lays it out pretty good. There is the upper waters of spirit, the lower waters of sense, and in between is the firmament. When you rise up to the firmament and then climb the mountain, when you get to the mountaintop, above sense level existence, exposed to the revelation of the divine creation. This is a process laid out for humanity in symbolic languages like astrology, mythology, the parables of scripture, the symbolism of fairy tale. This idea of initiating a developmental process, and it unfolds in 3 phases. But if you're unaware of the fact there are things that we can and we must do in order to initiate it, then we fall back into the mistake we're all socialized with. We think there's nothing we have to do. Points of passage, rites of passage are no longer needed. And so as a result, we're chronologically aging and psychologically, spiritually remaining in this underdeveloped state.
We're going to pause right here to a word from our sponsor. Listeners will be back with you in just a few moments. Kriya Yoga Theory 2 is a unique and revolutionary practice and forum designed to facilitate the growth process in human development. Apotheosis is a real experience and has an evidence procedure. You cannot lead someone to permanent change by doing for them what they must do themselves. Personal accountability and responsibility are the foundation of Kriya Yoga Theory 2. You must be engaged and devoted. Prana power brings virtue to overcome fear, wisdom to overcome ignorance, purpose to overcome selfishness, enthusiasm to overcome laziness. Kriya Yoga is a path of action, knowledge, and devotion. These sessions are a celestial positioning system to guide the individual into union with the divine. For more information or to sign up for your next session online, go to www.ipdtransform.com. Namaste. Welcome back. For those who are just joining us, you're listening to The Voice of Yoga, and we are talking consciousness. We have here a passage from Mary Baker Eddy. This is from her Miscellaneous Writing called The Way, and I'll read it. Less teaching and good healing is today the acme of well done, a healing that is not guesswork, chronic recovery ebbing and flowing, but instantaneous cure. This absolute demonstration of science must be revived. To consummate this desideratum, mortal mind must pass through 3 stages of growth. End of this passage. Swami, let's get your thoughts on this.
Yeah, there are 3 modes of mortal thought, and then the operations of divine mind. Once we initiate this developmental process, which really begins with born again of spirit, where matter and mind come together with the invisible, intangible divine omnipresence, that's what initiates the positive growth of consciousness. Then the 3 phases it goes through, the Bible would call that born of woman, born of man, born of spirit. It's caterpillar, chrysalis, butterfly. It's the human in the larvae state, the adolescent state, and then the adult state. But if we don't develop ourselves physically and mentally, then it becomes that much more difficult for us to be lifted up into this ascended state of being. Like Jesus said, "And if I be lifted up, I draw all men unto me." When the tide comes in, it lifts all the floating boats. If we have not developed ourselves to the point where we have separated from our lowest level of consciousness, which is animal magnetism, instinct, appetite, preservation, and survival. It's fear. And we haven't developed ourselves humanly, developed mental functions, graduated from being reactive and emotional to being able to make intelligent decisions based on the information coming through the corporeal senses, then make the break from being individualized by world mind. World mind, in the Bible, it's the son of perdition. It's corporeal sense functioning in human consciousness. That's the sin. And when Jesus said, "I have overcome the world," it really means he has overcome the temptation of what we would call sin, the belief in a finite mortal sense of self. And once we have gone through these stages in development, able to control how we think and make our mind an avenue of awareness for the operations of divine mind. The next stage would be the birth of Christ in consciousness. Christ being the Messiah, the saving aspect of truth. It's the interface. Christ is what's going to make the divine creation comprehensive to human consciousness. And so these are things you want to have in place if you are looking to demonstrate divine law with scientific certainty.
Now, so I realize that some of us may have a hard time to stop thinking, but we do need to learn and practice how to think right. Would that be a good starting point for most of us?
I come back to the Kriya Yoga. Yoga is a complete holistic health management system. I really like the fact Joel Goldsmith used the term meditation. Meditation, by definition, is the 7th stage of yoga. The 5th stage of yoga is pratyahara, sense withdrawal. So this is something that happens in sequential progressions. If you're not following a procedure like this and you're trying to do this left to your own devices, you would probably leave out the number one most important thing found in yoga in your first stage, which is yama. Your fifth yama is brahmacharya, which means carrier of Brahman. It's this union of matter and mind with spirit that initiates the progressive cycle. And when you're working with a scientific system like the Kriya Yoga we teach, you can follow the evidence procedure. And say, for example, your next stage of yoga is niyama, observances. These are more strategies you can employ will help you develop a path of action, a path of knowledge, and a path of devotion. The next stage is asana, working with the physical body. Posture. Posture is a huge aspect of fitness, gives us the benefit of internal support. When the bones support you internally, the energy moves through the physical appearance in the way that it's designed to. With our Western socialization, we are constantly seeking external reinforcement, which then undermines our ability to develop this faculty that will give us self-reliance, where we're drawing from a resource more reliable and more dependable. The next stage in yoga is pranayama, control of prana, which is a whole science on the relationship between life-sustaining force number 1, thought, and life-sustaining force number 2, breath. And the relationship there is your rate of breath equals your rate of thought. By controlling your breathing, you can control your rate of thinking. It doesn't control the content of your thought, nor the mode of thinking you're operating from. But when you put all of this into your value system and database of knowledge, you can coordinate these strategies, orchestrate them to ascend above the limits of mental material energy.
We have another passage here by Mary Baker Eddy, and this is from Christian Healing, page 14, and I'll read it. The preparation for a metaphysical practitioner is the most arduous task I ever performed. You must first mentally educate and develop the spiritual sense or perceptive faculty by which one learns the metaphysical treatment of disease. You must teach them how to learn, together with what they learn. I waited many years for a student to reach the ability to teach. It included more than they understood. Metaphysical or divine science reveals the principle and method of perfection, how to attain a mind in harmony with God, in sympathy with all that is right and opposed to all that is wrong, in a body governed by this mind. End of the passage. So it sounds like she's talking about what you just described.
Yeah, well, what I just described is what I got from her, so it would make perfect sense. It's one thing to talk about doing this and graduate to demonstrating divine law with scientific certainty. The thing I always admired about Mrs. Eddy's discovery, her reliance on demonstration. Spirit is a demonstrable principle, and it testifies with deeds, not words. But graduate. You need the letter of truth, and at the same time, you need the spirit of truth. And if you're not working with a divine metaphysical system, addressing all of the things that need to be in place before you can let divine mind do its knowing in your awareness, then chances are you'll fall into the trap of trying to do this with the mind that can't bring forth the divine image, and you'll get frustrated, or you will start to accept outcomes. With thought and belief, we can change finite bad to finite good, but it's not the same as when divine mind does its knowing in your awareness, because if it's done with the mortal mind, it's under the law of karma. If divine mind does its knowing in your awareness, then it is under spiritual guidance, spiritual law.
Well, to further reinforce the necessity of developing the spiritually perceptive faculty, we have this passage from Herb Fitch's Realization of Oneness, Class 30A, and I'll read it. There comes a time when the meanings are somewhat clear, and after that, you're merely repeating more and more, and mostly because the next step, the ascendancy, is the step that we don't know how to go about. It's so easy to memorize something, and it's easy to practice principles. Even if you fail in the practice, at least you can practice them. But now we reach a point where it isn't enough to practice the principles themselves. We have to develop the faculty to receive another level of the teaching. Now we have to practice to develop that faculty, for without it, we cannot receive a higher teaching. End of this passage. Swami, it sounds like he's really telling us like it is.
Yeah, well, this is how it is. If we don't have the mind of Christ, there's no way of us knowing the truth. And I'll continue with a little bit more of Joel Goldsmith, Beyond Words and Thoughts, Chapter 7, under Intelligent World Work. And I'll read it. Praying for the world does not mean praying for peace on earth, because that is praying for an effect. We can pray only that the kingdom of God be realized on earth as it is in heaven. And then that realization will bring peace. If through our experiences with a spiritual message, we have had some proof that in the presence of the Christ, the carnal mind is not power, then we can go on to the greater realization that the carnal mind is the arm of flesh, or nothingness. If we can become convinced that the carnal mind is a nothingness, we should have no trouble at all in engaging in world work, because whether it is manifesting as one individual or as a billion individuals, there is only one carnal mind. When we can perceive that the carnal mind is non-power in the realization of the presence of the Christ, we are helping nullify it for the world. End of quote. So here's a thing that's very helpful is the idea of scale. When you're working with a principle, it's like 2 + 2 is 4, but 2 trillion plus 2 trillion is 4 trillion. And it's very similar when we're working with this divine principle. The idea of one being, everywhere, always. Spirit, everywhere, always. We're not at the level of what's called the many. We're out of time, space, concept, belief, theory, human will, personal sense, thinking. And we are now in the realm of spirit, absolute, everywhere, always. And it's the only power here. But we must be conscious of it in order to activate it in experience. And one of the things I work with is this idea of ask, seek, and knock. Ask in my name, my likeness, which is spiritual, in oneness. Seek by being still, resting in the knowledge of the omnipresence of perfection. And knock with the thunder of silence, by keeping awareness on the invisible, intangible, divine creation, and rise into the one perfect divine being.
Swami, thank you for your insights for today's episode titled Secret of the Healing Ministry. Listeners, be sure to visit the website www.ipdtransform.com. On any of the pages you scroll down, you'll see several buttons there that you could press that would further your understanding. Swami, any final thoughts about today's podcast?
Well, I would like to encourage people to join the Kriya Yoga Spiritual Advance to get the light in your soul and be a servant of the Most High. Namaste.
Thank you for listening to our podcast, The Voice of Yoga. This is Lisa Winton, along with Swami Jayananda, signing off. Have a wonderful Kriya Yoga realization. Namaste.